research over the last 20 years has shown that aging is not just a random process, and it's not something that's due to bad genes and there's nothing we can do about it, but that aging is essentially based on a set of defined processes that happen in cells and their root causes to aging. And what's exciting is that today we can study these processes, and by studying this process we can find out how we can modulate them, and research has come together quite well over the past years showing that they can be modulated in a way that we can slow the aging process quite dramatically. Aging is something that can be impacted if we by the right lifestyle choices, if we exercise, if we have the right nutrition. And what is exciting is that there's a correlate to what we do and what happens at the cellular level. So really impacting at the cellular level can influence how well we age, how long we stay healthy, and in the end it gives us a way to do proactive health management. So everything we do requires energy. Climbing stairs, carrying a bag of groceries, living, experiencing, forming memories, all this requires energy. And this energy comes from the cellular level. The energy is produced in organelles that are called mitochondria. They are also considered the power plants of the cell. And essentially what mitochondria do, they convert nutrients that we take in into energy. And so this is a process that happens all over the time. I think one very impressive example is our heart. Our heart beats 100,000 times a day. And so heart cells are very well equipped to produce the energy needed for these 100,000 contractions. And so a single heart cell has, for example, over 5,000 mitochondria. And so this is a process that works very well, but there's a point in our lives where there's a slight decline of mitochondrial function, so the way the energy can be transformed into energy. And this is a process that starts years or decades before we can feel any changes, or where, for example, a disease may arise. Now the example being cardiac disease. So, and these are processes, again, that we can study and that we think that we can modulate with the right lifestyle, with the right nutrition and other ways. So when we say cells breathe, essentially it means a process where the mitochondria in the cells take nutrients like carbohydrates and lipids, and to a lesser extent protein, and they use oxygen to burn these nutrients to provide energy and carbon dioxide. So it's truly a breathing process that goes on in nearly all cells of our body. And so this is a process that is highly efficient. It's like many little factories in our cells. But over time, this process becomes a little bit less efficient, which is due to accumulating damage to mitochondria that occur during midlife, and that can be impacted quite dramatically when chronic health conditions appear. Aging really, and including cell declines really, or let's say changes to how cells function, is a lifelong process. But researchers have found recently that the aging process is not linear, but that there are defined waves during our life where the processes that lead to aging at the cellular level accelerate. So one of these waves happens in midlife, and there's a second wave that happens around retirement age, around 65 years of age. Mitochondria are so fundamental to everything we do. The decline in mitochondrial function really goes hand in hand with the aging process overall. So first signs can be, for example, that during midlife, that it's not so easy anymore to avoid putting on these extra pounds, for example. And it's understood today that the way mitochondria can break down lipids has an impact on our weight management and potentially on our weight gain. And so here's clearly a link between mitochondrial function and these, I would say, first signs of aging that impact some of us. But then also in later life, when mitochondrial decline is a bit more accelerated, it could show, for example, that just our physical, vitality is not as strong anymore, climbing several floors at a time, or carrying your groceries. These are things that could correlate to a decline in mitochondrial function. So there's very exciting research actually that was published that even if you start exercising at a really old age, exercise still has a dramatic influence on making more mitochondria, on making mitochondria more efficient, and at the end of the day improving your quality of life. And so there's a clear link between exercise and mitochondrial health at any stage of our life actually. And the same is the case for nutrition. So even nutrition that we know we need to cut out or cut down, at least, like refined sugars or trans fat acids, we know they're a real threat to mitochondria, and they have an impact on how mitochondria can function. These are two examples. During aging, our cells are constantly exposed to small accumulating changes and damages that occur. And for most of our life, the cells can cope very well with these, with stresses, and they're quite resilient to it. But the process is like, if we get a bit more technical, for example, damage to DNA, or also a process called oxidative stress, which is essentially a way of cellular rusting. So the oxygen that is being consumed in mitochondria as a byproduct generates free oxygen radicals, and they damage the cells like in a rusting process. And so these are just two examples of stresses to cells. And what they do is that some nutrients that before damage has reached a certain threshold, we can get plenty of them from the nutrition or from production within the cell. So often you have a balance between some is made by your cells and some you take in by nutrition. But with this increasing accumulating damage, these nutrients are being consumed at a much, much higher rate. And we get in a situation where just eating more of them or making more in the cell is not sufficient. And so we call these nutrients conditionally essential nutrients, also cellular nutrients. There are essentially special nutrients that address the specific needs of an aging cell and ultimately an aging organism. So we mentioned previously one of the main damages to mitochondria is oxidative stress, this rusting process. And cells have quite sophisticated ways to defend against this byproduct of energy production through antioxidants. And antioxidants can either be consumed by the diet, like vitamin C is a famous antioxidant, or vitamin E, but they're also made at the cellular level. So cells produce antioxidants either as enzymes or as molecules that can fend off oxidative damage. Now what is important to understand is that these antioxidants have to work in sync with cellular or the natural processes of the cell. So let me give you an example. If you exercise, for example, and the contraction that your muscle does generates a lot of, or requires a lot of energy and generates really high levels of oxidative stress. But these are not necessarily bad for your muscle, quite the opposite. So this oxidative stress is a signal for the muscle to adapt, to become stronger, to make more mitochondria, essentially a part of the training that we do. So what you don't want is you don't want to flood your cells constantly with antioxidants, because they can interfere with the adaptation process. So you really want to give solutions to the cell that work with the natural processes, that give, let's say, the building blocks to make antioxidants in the cell when they're needed and to be used when they're needed. So this is quite important for defending against oxidative stress. So there's a process in our cells which is essentially a cellular recycling. It's called autophagy. It's a process of self-digestion of damaged materials, and with the breakdown products of these digested materials, the cells can make new things, including new mitochondria. So the repair of damaged mitochondria is called mitophagy, It's a form of autophagy, and it's a process that works quite well when we're young. Triggers, for example, for autophagy is again exercise, or also going through phases of fasting or energy restriction triggers cellular repair. But when we age, autophagy and mitophagy are not as efficient anymore. And there's a link to nutrition. For example, there are metabolites made by the gut microbiota, by the bacteria in the gut, for example, urolithin A, which is a very strong trigger of mitophagy. And so these, for example, can be used to really address the need of a cell when there's damage accumulated, when mitochondria don't produce enough energy. You can essentially help to turn them over and make new mitochondria. So since mitochondria are so essential for everything we do, for what cells do, keeping mitochondrial healthy is really at the core what we want to achieve. And research is really building up also in humans how closely mitochondrial health is linked to physiological function and everyday function in the end. Now, preclinically, there's really a lot of data today that shows that if you improve mitochondrial function in animals, they are more energetic, they are leaner than their counterparts, they have better memory function, they essentially just fare better. In humans, evidence is a little bit less limited today, but one key example, for example, is in what has been shown and published recently is if you give the right energy source to mitochondria in the brain, this can really help maintain brain function and memory in people that start noting a decline in different cognitive capacities, including memory. So we really expect more and more research now coming up that really make a clear link between how healthy mitochondria are in different organ systems and how well we do with age. The best solutions is exercise and nutrition, and at any stage. And for example, what was estimated recently is even relatively, like during mid-age, when you're 50 years old, when people start adhering to the most important lifestyle factors like not putting on weight, not smoking, only drinking moderately, eating the right food and exercising, it's estimated that you can add 12 to 14 years to your life expectancy. And so this is quite dramatic if you think about it, having another 10, 12, 14 years in good health that you can enjoy. Now, what else can be done? These are just the basics. And again, with the understanding of aging research and understanding which processes go wrong with aging, we think we can intervene even better with specific supplements, like what we called before the conditional essential nutrients, or also cell nutrition, that can really support cellular function and mitochondrial function with age. I think essentially everyone who wants to do proactive health management. So today we're in a system which is quite reactive. Some people call it even a sick care system, when we start intervening or acting almost when it's too late. And we know that there's a large window today where we can really influence our health before the problems arise. And so cell nutrition is a way to do proactive health management quite early in life. At the same time, there are specific conditions that we know put additional stress on cellular aging, conditions where we see high levels of oxidative stress, conditions of chronic systemic inflammation, for example. And so here, of course, it makes sense to consider also specific supplements along the research that it builds up, that there's an increased requirement of those in certain health impairments. Yeah, so essentially genetics influence how we age, but we cannot change our genes. We cannot change our genetic code in the end. However, whether we have the good genes or the bad genes influence our daily life is also regulated by a process called epigenetics. So epigenetics are small modifications that you can find on DNA, as well as on proteins that store the DNA, where the DNA is packaged on. And so these modifications, they're essentially responsive to changes in the nutrient environment and other environmental conditions. And so in a way, they integrate our lifestyle with our genetic information in regulating how cells and organs function. And there's a process called epigenetic drift with aging, so the epigenetics change over time, having an impact on how our cells are functioning. And what is exciting is that researchers have recently discovered a subset of epigenetic modifications which essentially tell you something about the accumulation of your aging process at the cellular level. Yes, that's an especially exciting topic. So today we count age as calendar age, also called the chronological age. But if you think about it, what's much more important is not what is written in your passport, but is how fit you are for your age, and if you have the vitality to handle your daily tasks. And this concept is called biological aging, but it's hard to assess. So, I mean, of course, you can count the wrinkles in your face, but it's not a very good proxy of your fitness state. And so over the last years, quite a few tools have emerged that do a quite good job in accurately quantifying your biological aging. So these tools include, for example, wearables, also optical interfaces on your phone, and also clinical tests based on saliva or blood that give you an information about your biological age. Yes, so biomarkers of aging are a way to track your health. And this goes back to the concept that today there's a clear shift from reactive healthcare, starting to treat when it's too late, to giving everyone the tools we need for proactive health management. But the way we manage our health is a highly personal matter, not just because of our genetics and how our physiology functions, but also based on what are our food preferences, what is our social life, what is our cultural background. And so aging becomes a quite complex process, and to really give the optimal tools for everyone, it's favorable to have some guidance. And so today we think that biomarkers of biological aging is a way to guide consumers to make the right choices. Now, some of the markers are relatively easy to use and they're easy to understand, but maybe they give not a full picture. And other biomarkers of aging are a little bit more complex. They potentially need your general practitioner or another healthcare professional to interpret the results and provide you with feedback. But a combination of these biomarkers of aging will clearly give us tools to see how our choices that we take for proactive health management are working. And in a way, it's also a metrics to motivate and to influence behavior and to really make proactive health management a routine for us, which is not just a burden, but also it's fun and integrated in our daily life. So mitophagy is a very technical term, but it's a really interesting process at the cellular level. So mitophagy is the process of a cell to detect which mitochondria, the cellular power plants, are not functioning properly anymore. And it's a very smart way to single them out and self-digest, so the cell digests the mitochondria that are damaged, break them down, and build new mitochondria. It's essentially like taking a broken car, fixing what's going wrong, and having a almost brand new car afterwards. And so this is a process that can be triggered by exercise or by, for example, by energy restriction or fasting. But it's also a process that we know declines with aging. So the repair of mitochondria and restoring like new healthy mitochondrial function is not that easy anymore in older age. So triggering mitophagy through specific nutrients, one of them, for example, is urolithin A, can really help you maintain healthy levels of mitochondrial function. So urolithin A is a polyphenol. It's a molecule that kind of comes from plant sources. But what's very interesting about urolithin A, it's in that form produced by the bacteria in the gut. So, and what scientists have found over the past years is that not all of us are able to use more complex polyphenols that you can find, for example, in certain berries, also in pomegranate. Not all of us can convert the complex polyphenols into urolithin A in the gut. And so by providing urolithin A, we essentially bypass the gut machinery and provide directly urolithin A as a supplement that can trigger mitophagy, so the repair of damaged mitochondria, and can restore a pool of fully functional energy generating mitochondria. So NAD is a molecule that you find in every cell of the body, and it's an energy transfer molecule, so it's required for cells to make energy. But it's much more than that. You also require NAD to repair DNA, for example, or to cope with overnutrition on a cellular level, and also to keep inflammatory processes in check. And what is particular about NAD+ is that it's required at higher rates during the aging process, because stresses to cells like DNA damage, they make NAD a much higher requirement that we cannot easily fill through nutrition or cellular production. So NAD levels are considered to decline during the aging process as a result of a higher need of NAD for essentially keeping cells functioning at in the presence of certain stresses like NAD damage or also inflammation. Yeah, so carbohydrates are the energy source. These are what we call macronutrients that are broken down to make energy and produce carbon dioxide. However, to be able to produce this energy, we need NAD+ as a cofactor in the complicated little factory in mitochondria that converts nutrients to energy. And so not having enough NAD, and we believe today that during the aging process and in certain diseases, NAD levels can drop to critical levels. Providing NAD together with energy fuels like carbohydrates can help to maintain proper energy function, and in the end cellular function, and from cellular function also organ function. Yeah, so nicotinamide riboside is a form of vitamin B3, and it's readily absorbed. It's orally available. It's very safe as well, and has been shown to increase NAD+ levels that we require for cellular energy production.